Welcome to the FASA Leadership Lounge, where we dive into the policy shaping the work of Florida school leaders. I'm Michelle White, Executive Director for the Florida Association of School Administrators.
And I'm Jessica Janasiewicz, lobbyist for FAFSA in several school districts here in the state of Florida.
Well, we are finished with 4 weeks of session. We have so many things to cover this week. But first, maybe there's a little bit of drama that not unexpected, Jessica, through the House and the Senate. And we've been talking about this for weeks, but it's getting real.
It's getting real. It's getting very real.
There were some Twitter comments.
There were, when we're taking to the social media to air our grievances, that we have got some drama going on. Yes. So typically this week is around the time that we would see chambers releasing their budgets, which kind of just starts that process in the subcommittees, and then it moves through the chambers, and that's how we start the budget making process. Well, we started hearing that the Senate was going to hear their budget, and then there started being some rumors, nothing confirmed, that the House was not going to release their budgets this week. So what ended up happening was we had Senator Hooper, who is our appropriations chair. That is the gentleman on the Senate side who runs the budget process. He tweeted out this week, traditionally, the chambers introduce the budgets on the same week. It's important for us to keep that tradition and roll out the same week as our partners in the House. As such, we have updated our schedule to roll out the budget in committees on Thursday the 12th instead of this week. So basically just saying they were going to.
That'd be so nice. They get to work alongside the House and they're going to be good partners.
Exactly. And then,
but maybe not.
Then our Representative McClure, who is the House Appropriations Chair, that's the person who's going to run the budget making process in that chamber, he tweeted out, with respect to Senator Hooper, during this term, the Florida Senate has demonstrated little interest in respecting legislative traditions. Any timing issues they are having in pulling together their Senate budget have absolutely nothing to do with the Florida House.
So maybe the Senate does have their things together, but they're trying to be respectful, but maybe they don't have it all together for their budget.
Seems like things are maybe not going quite as smoothly as we would have hoped. So this week, we can all anticipate seeing those budgets. It sounds like they're going to appear during these subcommittees. So each silo will release their budget, and then we'll have a sense that we can talk about what they're putting forth in each chamber. Are they dramatically different? Is there some kind of policy in either the Senate or the House that is kind of earth-shattering? Last year, that was the sales tax issue that the House Speaker brought forth. That kind of just took everything and just moved our direction and moved the conversation in a way that we had not expected. So maybe we'll see that in committees this week.
Yeah, and so the budgets being released will really be that first step in negotiation, so to speak, and maybe give us some insight into the property tax discussion too, of are we going to try to handle it during session? Is there going to have to be a special session? What happens with the budget? The only thing they're required to do in these 60 days isn't going to be done in time. So
is it going to be done in the 60 days?
That's right.
We shall see.
How long will everybody still be here in Tallahassee? FASA will be here no matter what. But what will the legislature do? Anyway, let's talk about some bills, and we've certainly touched on a few of these over the last few episodes, but there's some bills that are moving. We're going to dig in a little bit on some of that content of the bills and see what potential next steps there are and the impacts that they may have on our school leaders, and students, and families.
Absolutely. So this can all be a little confusing if you're not living it every day. And quite frankly, it can be confusing sometimes when you are living it every day. It's a convoluted process. So let's start with the train bill that we've touched on in previous episodes. The title officially now of this bill is CS for HB 1071, which is entitled Education. First of all, the name is a little different and makes you wonder what that's all about. Well, what that tells us is that the bill started out as simply a House bill that was filed by Representative Trabulsi. It has gone through many iterations. In its first committee stop, I think there were 8 amendments, and I think at least 2 in the second. So what they will do oftentimes when a bill has really taken a dramatic turn and there have been a number of amendments that have changed it, it becomes a committee bill. So it is something it will represent the work of the entire committee and not just one representative moving it forward. So that is hence the CS. So
committee substitute.
Committees, that's what that really exactly. So when you hear all these letters, you hear CS for HB. What that really means is committee substitute for House Bill, and in this case, 1071. So if you ever watch when they're on the floor passing bills, you'll hear a lot of CS for, and it sounds crazy, but that just lets you know all the changes that have taken place.
And really, they're required to say that full name because it comes as part of the full bill.
That's right.
Little tips and tricks for our members that are following along with bill numbers. Easy way to tell if it's a House bill or a Senate bill. If it's an even numbered bill, then it will come from the Senate. And if it's an odd numbered bill, then that means it's coming out of the House.
Absolutely. And you also can see, and this isn't 100% true, but most of the time, if it's a committee bill, that usually tells you that it is coming from more of a chairman or leadership of some sort in that chamber. It has kind of that stamp of approval, and it's not just a member-driven bill.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of that in mind, we also know that when bills are filed, they are usually assigned to 2 to 3 committees that they have to go through. They have to be read, and there has to be opportunities for questions and debate and if they pass that committee, they will work their way through each committee stop until they get to the floor of either the House or the Senate. In this instance, CS for CS, House Bill 1071, is in its third committee, the House and Education and Employment Committee. It has previously, of course, been reported favorably in both the Student Academic Success Subcommittee and the Pre-K-12 Budget Subcommittee.
That's right. And so that seems like it's close to the finish line, right?
Yep.
Not quite. So after that, assuming it makes it through its final committee, which that one undoubtedly will, as we mentioned, the CS usually gives you an indication that it's on the track. Then it will be ready for the House floor. Once it's on the House floor, it is read and debated numerous times, so not even just once, where they get a chance to ask questions and then they get to debate, and then it is finally voted on. If it passes the House floor, that's a step in the right direction, but we're still not done yet.
Of course. The biggest next question is, does it have a companion on the other side? So in this bill in particular, yes, this bill technically has 4 related bills, which doesn't necessarily mean they're identical, but it means that they have some similar content. And those bills will also have to move through their respective committee assignments on the Senate side and then pass on the Senate floor. Mm-hmm. Assuming one or all of them pass, then they'll be combined with the House version. So once the House passes it on the floor and the Senate passes theirs on the floor, then they typically do a little switchy, mm-hmm. and they each have to deal with the opposite bill on the floor. And then one of them gets to be the winning bill, right? That they basically with the Senate will adopt all of the language from the House bill as the bill that is going to move forward. And that's where at the end of session you see.
That's right. So if the bill passes the House, which it will, yes, they will send it over to the Senate. The Senate can try to say that they have a companion. This one it's a little challenging. They can take the bill and strip all the language off from the House bill and stick their language on and send it back. Or in some cases, this bill is not a good example because it's so lengthy, but let's say you have just an easy basic bill of making key lime pie day in Florida. And the Senate says, I want it to be key lime pie day and Florida strawberry day or something minor. They can add to it and send it back to the House, or they could just accept it and say, you know what, we'll give up on our strawberries and just take the key lime pie. So it really is up to, and those decisions, of course, are really made at the president and speaker level.
Right.
They may defer to the member running the bill if it's not a huge big deal, but something like this, that's a big train bill, they're gonna leadership is looking at this.
For sure. And then they're going to spend some time debating it on the
Yes.
floor when it gets there.
Absolutely. So this is how it all works. So let's look at this bill and see how it will impact you, because it is quite a lengthy bill. This bill will prohibit schools, districts, charter administrators, and direct support organizations from spending any funds, regardless of the source, on memberships or goods or services from organizations that discriminate on protected bases.
Yes, it will also prohibit spending state or federal funds to promote, support, or maintain programs or campus activities that, quote, advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or promote or engage in political or social activism as defined by state board rule, which then gives us an opportunity to see the State Board of Education develop their own language and set of rules on what that actually means.
That's right. So there's a lot, and there was a lot of discussion in committee about this. People were saying, if we have a club that goes and picks up trash at the beach, is that considered a political activity? Well, in this case, it would depend what the state board decides to say. So they could make it very narrow interpretation or a very, very broad interpretation about what would be considered something that engages in political or social activism. So that's why it's important, even when this is all over, it's really not over, because then we got to watch that rulemaking.
That's right, for sure.
There's also some more contents of this bill, and this one's been a pretty hot topic in committee meetings. This bill looks at health education training, specifically human embryologic and fetal development for grades 6 through 12, and it would mandate a high definition, medically accurate ultrasound video of at least 1 minute and a medically accurate computer generated rendering, animation, or video of at least 3 minutes showing fertilization and week by week development at birth. This has been the really core of the controversy on this issue in particular, because there are critics of the bill and of that particular provision that say that that's really targeting a specific video that has been created by an outside third party. And they say, we shouldn't be putting all of our instruction based on this one video that comes from this third party. Now, the proponents say that's not what this is. But when you see language that's written, that's pretty specific. So we'd have to see how that all pans out.
Absolutely. There is also a safety part to this bill. It requires locked and closed gates to exclusive zones in the school. There is also a safety part to this bill too, where it requires locked and closed gates to exclusive zones in the school. Locked classroom doors while occupied, and conditions when doors can be open and unlocked and must be actively staffed. It also requires marking the safest areas in classrooms and notifying students within 10 days. There is also an explicit reporting chain. Anyone aware of a violation must report it to the principal. The principal must report it to the safety specialist the next business day, and the principal. And if the principal is in violation, the report goes to the superintendent or to the charter board.
Good heavens, that's a lot of detail there for that safety piece, and that they're just so important when there's that much detail and chain of command and all the things. It's very, very
and we all want safe environments and buildings for our students and our staff that are in there. And this is, really getting into that reporting piece of, hey, I saw that this door was propped open or this door was not locked at the media center or something. And the principal really having to take on that liability of reporting it.
Absolutely. A couple other takeaways. There's also some issues in this bill that concern student record transfer and SRO notification. So the bill states that student transfer records have to include verified reports of serious or recurrent behavior patterns, including threat assessment reports and related documentation. When the student enrolls in a new school, the SRO has to be notified and given any of those records upon request. There is also some language in the bill looking at instructional materials that would allow the Commissioner of Education more discretion to have a material that is on the adopted list already be removed, that the commissioner could do that. Of course, that brings up a whole myriad of questions about what would that mean for our schools if you've already been using this material and then it's off the list. What does the school district do if you're in the midst of your purchase of that? What do you do? Even just if it's just in the interim, if you're trying to get a new material, and of course, costs associated and things like that. So that's also something in the bill.
And these are all like really big topics to be included in one single bill too.
Yes.
So more to come, of course, but things that could add some responsibilities and liabilities for administrators pretty much at every level.
Yes, that's exactly right. So let's move on to a bill that's a little lighter for the moment. Last week, House Bill 127 required instruction in cursive writing passed on the House floor. It requires students in grades 2 through 5 to study and become proficient in cursive writing.
So this bill is not necessarily new to the Florida legislature. We have seen it filed in previous sessions. It has not been successful, of course. It does have a companion bill, Senate Bill 444, and it has been filed and referred to 3 committees but has not been heard yet. So no movement on the Senate side, but we'll see what happens.
And we are getting close to the point where some of our policy committees will cease meeting. And so for bills like that, if it hasn't even been heard in its first committee, it's going to be really difficult if it doesn't get moving like stat.
Well, and we talked about it in the beginning with the tweets going back and forth about tradition, right? Really, truly, a bill needs to have been heard in at least one of its committees if they decide to yank that to the floor. We've seen them skirt the line just a little bit in the past of a bill not being heard, but then they still pull the content as an amendment into another bill, which maybe they're not supposed to do that. But, it's all to be seen on what happens with it.
That's exactly right. And to that end, what we're seeing a lot of this year is one bill moving in one chamber and not going anywhere in the other, and then vice versa. And so another example of that is a bill that we want to talk a little bit more in depth about today, which is Senate Bill 320. That's the administrative efficiencies, or that is also the DREG bill. This is now the 3rd year that we've had DREG. Obviously, in year 1, we had some passed, but not all of the elements. They've been attempting to get those elements in the next couple of years, and we haven't. So good news is it passed through all of its committees and it passed through on the Senate floor. It just went swimmingly through the Senate and very quickly. It does have a companion bill, House Bill 963, but it has not been heard yet. And its first committee, which is the Education Administrative Subcommittee, is a subcommittee. Those are the first committees that cease meeting. So on the House side, you might have 2 of our education subs that stop meeting, but the big education committee might continue to meet for a couple of weeks. So that could be a problem.
Yes.
So we are waiting.
We're certainly not going to let the slow nature of the House on that side stop us from talking a little bit more of like what is in the Senate bill, because its companion is identical and they would have the same information. So what is really in here that would increase those administrative efficiencies? First and foremost is less bureaucracy for school boards. So what the language basically says is that district school boards are exempt from certain formal rulemaking requirements under the Administrative Procedure Act when adopting rules in public meetings. So the Department of Education here in Florida must annually tell superintendents that they can request declaratory statements for legal clarity and then maintain a master list of statutory and rule requirements that districts must follow, including notifications and postings and reports. So one new thing for the department.
One more thing. It will also reduce auditing and reporting burdens for districts. So districts would no longer be required to employ an internal auditor unless they exceed $500 million in combined revenues. School financial reports would no longer have to be printed in the student handouts, and the DOE would have school accountability and financial transparency reports online, and then districts could just link to those.
So it really is a big bill. There is so many more topics that are included. Another one would be a multi-year, up to 3-year contracts for teachers who hold professional certificates and have strong evaluations. It would also include 10-year professional certificates for consistently highly effective teachers and expand temporary certification pathways for military veterans, apprentices, and paraprofessionals. This will also attempt to address teacher shortages while emphasizing instructional quality.
It'll also clarify collective bargaining limits, and it will not block district actions related to teacher incentives, school turnaround efforts, discipline policy, school safety, parent communication, and school calendars. It will also give districts more authority when it comes to determining if they need to make up school days when there is a bona fide emergency. So we know we have had some instances where districts were off for a hurricane or what have you.
A snow day is
A snow day. And they then would have to appeal to the Department of Education to see if those days need to be made up. This would allow the districts more autonomy in making those decisions themselves.
And there would also be in this bill better teaching and assessment transparency. So the of Education would be required to publish assessment schedules 2 years in advance. That means districts and schools will be able to publish more detailed testing calendars online more quickly. There will also be faster reporting timelines for statewide assessments. For VPK, parents must verify attendance monthly, and districts must certify the accuracy of attendance to improve fiscal responsibility and reduce redundant processes.
And there's a few more items in this bill. With regard to school improvement and turnaround, schools cannot use student growth scores as a sole factor in recruiting their teachers. The state board also must adopt clearer rules and faster timelines for turnaround plans and release of Title I improvement funds within 20 days. The bill also allows districts to withhold up to 5% of their Title I funds for teacher incentives in high-need schools.
This bill really is massive, something that we have been certainly supportive of all through these 3 years, and hopefully we'll see this come to fruition if we can also get it moving on the House side.
Exactly. The next bill that's moving through committee is Senate Bill 1718, which is entitled Educator Preparation and Certification by Senator Falada. It is currently in the Appropriations Committee on Pre-K-12 Education, which is its second committee, and has a similar bill in the House Bill 561, which is also in its second committee.
So this bill is all about making it easier for people to enter, re-enter, and remain in the teaching profession while strengthening access to high-quality professional learning aligned with Florida's standards. Some of the things in this bill that it will help with would be individuals with expired teaching certificates would now qualify for a temporary certificate if they meet standard eligibility requirements. Also, when a professional certificate is reinstated, all endorsements and subject area coverages must be reinstated as well. And then also free professional learning for certificate renewal and reinstatement.
That bill will help out a lot of people, including prospective teachers, and especially folks that are coming from mid-careers, teachers with expired certificates. So if we've had anybody that has in the past, whatever reason, left the profession and wants to return, and school districts that are facing staffing shortages, we know this would be helpful, and as well as the DOE and state-approved professional learning providers.
The last bill that we're going to talk about today is CS for HB 453, which is on requirements for a standard high school diploma. This bill passed the House floor last week, and its companion Senate Bill 556 is in its Senate committee.
That's right. This bill will make sure that if a student participates in the marching band for 2 years, then that would satisfy both their PE requirement for graduation and their performing arts requirement. There was some confusion last year when they passed the initial language, and it was unclear about what it would then qualify for. So this just clarifies that it would make them do 2 years in order to get both of the credits. And then it also would allow students who participate in the Special Olympics to have that count as their PE requirement for graduation as well. So this one has been one of the very few that has moved through both chambers and has received, kind of positive comments every time. So it should move quickly through the Senate, I imagine, as well.
Maybe it'll be something that can bring people together. Imagine performing arts and band and Special Olympics. All the legislature.
That's right.
They so get behind. It, of course, was a very busy week last week. We anticipate that being the same way going forward, especially as we get into budget discussions. Thank you all so much for listening. We greatly appreciate that. Be sure to share the FAFSA Leadership Lounge with your colleagues and on social media. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. It definitely continues to grow the audience and the reach with this great information. And we're here to help and support you also. If you have questions, please reach out. Again, head over to the FAFSA website, FAFSA.net, and check out all the resources that come with each podcast episode. Thanks, and stay tuned for more.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. The podcast was produced by Jeff Willoughby. Original musical recordings by David Higgins. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topics, suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@fasa.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.